It has been a long time, and I just want to say hi to everybody. I do these reluctantly because I don't trust YouTube at all. I trust YouTube just like I trust a rattlesnake. There's a lot of questionable issues. Those of us who have looked into this, we know that social media is very untrustworthy. But I figure right now, let me just put out content. I already know it will be under attack by the algorithms. I already know shadow bans and bots will attack me. I notice I've got my biggest critics are almost always anonymous, and they're most likely bots. But right now, we're in information warfare, so I figure let's do everything possible to get the truth out to as many people as possible. So, wanted to first start off. There's a number of topics that I wanted to talk about today. There's so much to cover, but I do these. I think the last one I did was like 4 or 5 months ago, but I hope to possibly do these more regularly. I fully expect these videos to be deleted. The fact that I could do thousands of videos and they could be deleted in 5 minutes, that's why I'm very reluctant to use this. But I figure it's better to give than to receive, and all the work that you do, you know, it pays off, and if you give and try to help other people out, it always comes back in the end. So first off, on social media, as much as possible, there are good content, or there is some good content, but the vast majority of social media is totally worthless. I think many of us recognize that. I don't know of a single comment section that you could 100% guarantee is free of bots. So the question is, if we don't know that bots are not on these comment sections, why are we interacting with the comment sections? Now, on my videos, I get it, but going on other people's, we can't talk to these people the vast majority of the time. So I'm unusual in the fact that when you see my content, I have my website, I have my phone number. You could actually contact me. I am a real person. I am not paid money to do what I'm doing right now. I'm doing it of my own volition based on my own research. I don't have an agenda that I'm pushing. There are no shadow handlers behind me. It's a 100%. These are my conclusions. I definitely don't know everything, but I definitely am constantly trying to continually learn and update what I do know. But just because of there are millions of bots online. I mean, if we have to estimate, there's like 340 million Americans, right? So if you think that each of us conservatively, and this is dramatically conservatively, has spent 3 hours interacting with bots online, you get somebody who comments on what you say, and then you want to respond to them. We have been, trusting, probably too trusting, that these are real people. But how many times have we been talking with Chat GPT and AI? So if I've reached the point, if it's an anonymous account online, I don't care if they say they don't want to be doxxed. I don't care about all their reasons, and they sound so convincing too. I don't care. I don't care if it's Jesus Christ himself online, and if he's anonymous, I don't trust him. I don't. And I think that's a good policy to have. Stop trusting anonymous people. Stop trusting influencers who we don't know. This idolatry, like constantly looking up to people who they don't really have good standards. It's like, what are their motivations? How are they being favored by the social media algorithms? I already know before I do this, the algorithms are not going to like what I have to say. If the algorithms suddenly pick up on what I have to say and spread it like wildfire, which has happened like I don't know, less than 5 times, I know something's wrong. Maybe the algorithm is broken or something, because it is designed to promote content that advances chaos, confusion, fear, and this agenda that supports our invisible government. So just, I think, being aware that these shadow authorities are ruling what we see online, and that, when we go online and comment, these likes and these comments on everything, YouTube, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever. I mean, it could be real humans, and it could easily be, bad agents or Chat GPT. And for those who just love Chat GPT, Sam Altman is a Jew, and he runs it, and he's been credibly accused by his sister of molesting her for 9 years. This is the guy behind ChatGPT. Why would you trust something like that? I don't trust it at all. I don't use it. I don't need to. They tell us, oh, AI is the future. No, it's not. Because the founders, the brains behind AI are so corrupt. It is appalling. So you might notice the socks that are hanging up there. Those are my wool socks. They have to dry. Some of the best socks I've ever had in my life, though. So many things to talk about today. I'm just going to scramble it to get together. So I just went to the Dothan City Council meeting in Dothan, Alabama, and this is why I don't trust YouTube, because I had to do the most work to go speak up there that I ever did before at a city council meeting, ever. I've been doing this for 12 years. It started back in 2013, so almost 13 years now. And as soon as I started speaking, I got all kinds of hostility from city councils and all that, but never. Dothan is in a league of its own. So first of all, you have to put in a request before the city council meeting. Now in California and in North Dakota, at least initially in North Dakota, you got to go to the city council meeting, and you just walk in. You would put in a card. I was pretty wary because they were asking me for my address and all this. I was like, why do they want my address? And it was funny because speakers would come in from other cities in California and they wouldn't give their address. So I was like, I don't think I really want to give these people my address. I don't really trust the government terribly right now. But in Dothan, they not only ask for your request, you're not speaking in Dothan unless they get your address. So you have to ask. You can't go to the city council meeting and speak by surprise. No. They have to plan for you. So you have to, I think it's the two city council meetings are on I think the first and third Tuesday of the month. And at 10 in the morning, that's another first, because normally it's in the evening where working people could go listen and speak. Not here, it's in the morning. So I put in my request online, because you have to do it by the Monday prior. I put it in a couple weeks before. Next thing I know, I get a response email. And the response email says that you must provide a notarized letter proving that I live at the address where I live. Well, this is a temporary place I'm living at now. But I was like, seriously? I have to give you a notarized letter? This is unprecedented. I've never seen this before. So I wasn't very happy about that. And then I went to this place and tried to get their cooperation. And I got a little bit of resistance initially, although it eventually worked out. Had a notary come along. The letter was notarized. I took it up there to Dothan City Hall, and I was able to speak this past Tuesday. So I went up there, spoke. There's a guy up there, Sam Tew. He's been going up there and speaking for some time. And when I spoke to him, he let me know that he was banned from City Hall, if I understand him correctly, 9 years, and he had to file a lawsuit. And after that lawsuit, he won it. Then he got to go back, and he does go back, and he really critiques them big time, which is good. Because anytime you get people going up at these city council and school board meetings and praising them, you know something's wrong. Either the person's corrupt or ignorant, because we have huge problems in our system. The city councils and school boards right now, I'm sorry, I mean, there is not really much to praise, because it's even if you're not corrupt, if you're ignorant and you're in a leadership position, you're out of your element. There are so many people that just love to lead. But it's where are you leading people? Do you have vision? Do you know history? Because if you don't, maybe it's time to take a back seat. There's nothing wrong with that, because nothing looks more foolish than the person who thinks they know and they're trying to lead and they have no idea where they're going. But that's what's happening with almost all of our elected officials today. They all just absolutely love to lead, but they all have almost no idea where they're going. They don't understand the history. They don't and if they do understand who controls our money system, they have no idea about what's about to happen. So it's like Proverbs says, "My people perish for a lack of vision." Hosea 4:6 says, "My people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge." And it's quite true. So, in addition to that, I left the city council meeting. I spoke briefly with a couple of council members, but I do want to say in the council meeting, one of the council members, Dave Stock, he announced that one of his close friends, who he said was a pilot, a husband, a father, he'd been murdered. So, of course, anyone who's heard me talk for a few years or so, you know automatically what I'm going to think about that. I'm going to do my research, but the first thought that pops into my mind was who did it, and the race factor comes in, because if it's a white man that died, and it was a white man that died, it's like the interracial violent crime rate is 90% of deaths of murders or interracial violent crime is black on white. 10% is white on black. The disparity isn't the worst part. The worst part is that the media, and we have politicians and people in positions of power that deliberately do one of two things. Either they hide it and they don't want to talk about this. The newspapers and Google will do this. You go Google this information, you can't find it. Or you Google like rape, murder, violent crime by race in any city in America practically, and Google will come back and tell you that blacks are like the leading victims of crimes. But they will nicely hide that blacks are also the greatest perpetrators of those violent crimes on other blacks, because 90% of the murders in the black community are from other blacks. Why are we hiding this information? You know, if we're just a free, transparent, if we're all equal, well, why is this stuff being, why is there, obviously there are people at high levels who have come to a decision to hide this. Why? Why? Because it destroys their narrative. If everybody knows this information, all this nonsense about slavery and racism and white supremacy and Nazis being a threat, it all falls apart. They know that. I think it's very important to recognize right now that in 1913 or so, the Tsar of Russia was the richest man on the face of this earth, and Russia was an up-and-coming nation full of wealth and prosperity, and the Tsar of Russia was murdered. It was the biggest murder robbery in world history. All of his wealth was taken. 40 million Russians were killed. Then you had an empire of 3,000 years, which was China. And China, first of all, the Sassoons related to the Rothschilds introduced opium in the 1800s. And then China, in the span of about 100 years, China collapsed. And don't think that it wasn't all related. It totally is. And of course today, as soon as China collapsed, 1948, Mao was put in force. 60 million Chinese were murdered. They trained the young people that the landlords were the problem, and so they basically stole all the land. China now is like 1.5 billion slave labor force is what it is. So, and that's coming to America, because the group in Russia was once very wealthy. They were robbed and plundered. China was once very wealthy. They were robbed and plundered. America. So they're aiming right now at the last real group of resistance. So it's whites in America own the most real wealth. So they're aiming, that's why the media has all this hostility towards white people. White people are behind slavery, and white people behind racism, and white people this, and white people that, and white people negative, on and on and on and on. And let's bring in immigrants, and if you don't want immigrants here, you're a terrible, bad, racist Nazi, and on and on and on and on and on and on. And we never hear the word Marxist. What does Marxist mean? Marxist means a hatred of white people. Now, why is it that you've heard hundreds, if not thousands of times of anti-Semitism? Why have you heard hundreds, if not thousands of times of racism? But you have never seen on television or in the newspapers, and it's doubtful you've seen it on Google, of Marxism, the hatred of white people. Now, exactly why is that? When you start to ask yourself these questions, I don't even really need to answer them. I just need to ask the questions. And when you begin to think, if you're honestly thinking, there's a lot of dishonest thinkers out there. They get information, it's like, oh, and they toss it away and they discard it without actually critically thinking. New information requires new decisions. So, anyways, I talked to this gentleman, Sam, too. He went up there and boldly spoke. And Dave Stock mentioned this murder. So I went and researched, and just as I suspected, a 24-year-old black man who was supposed to still have been in jail was let out in October to go kill again. He was guilty of this. And so, of course, when Dave Stock says that there are elements in our community who we need to address, I mean, there are elements. And as a matter of fact, when 6% of our nation are black men, and they're responsible for 50 to 70% of all violent crime, rapes, and murders. Now, there are millions of decent, good, upstanding black men. There's no, there's no doubt about that. But the fact of the matter is, we have a black crime problem. It's rooted in fatherlessness. 75% of black children are born out of wedlock. 75% of black boys are functionally illiterate. So I saw the statistic, and then I went to school in the most diverse city in America, Vallejo, California, which is 25% white, black, Asian, Latino. It's probably the most diverse city possibly in the world. And looking back, it was, I mean, obviously, nobody really read. I mean, I was a heavy reader, but when I went to school, I didn't really discuss the books that I read. It kind of led me to being kind of isolationist, kind of, even though I was one of 18 children, it was kind of a lonely existence, because when you read, and I loved reading, I still do, it sets you apart because you become attuned to information that you will not otherwise have gotten. And when your average person is reading newspapers, listening to the radio, today is Sunday, people will be watching the Super Bowl, which is a total waste of time, watching television, watching movies, on social media. This is your average person's mind. This is the information that controls what they believe, how they act, how they think. So growing up, it was kind of a lonely existence somewhat. I'm glad I did it. I don't regret it at all. But looking back, it was like, no, I mean, I didn't know any like black or Latino children, even Asian children for that matter, that were heavy readers. I remember in the 8th grade, I won at Franklin Junior Middle School, high school. I won, there was like 3 categories. I think I won like second prize in poetry, first prize in nonfiction, and second prize in nonfiction. So I was pretty happy about it. But there's no real competition because the other kids, they're not interested in that kind of stuff. I mean, very rarely are you going to find Latinos or blacks are interested in writing and read. They're just not a cult. It's a cultural thing right now, and we have to kind of admit this. Now, has this been fed deliberately by evil elements into the black and Latino community? Absolutely, 100%. You can't fault the black and Latino communities entirely. All of our communities, we have these influencers that are set up over us that basically they control our thinking. I mean, rap and all this stuff, like before 1950, rap didn't even exist in America. I mean, and the nation was far better off. Then there was this element that wanted to corrupt the culture, and they did a fabulous job. To where now these concerts, and I don't know why do people go to concerts? It's a total waste of time. I mean, what is it? In 100 or 200 years, you know, these singers, these rappers, all that, they're going to be forgotten. Nobody's going to remember them because what did they actually do? Even the entertainers, I mean, I have respect for a lot of them. They're doing the best they can. And hey, if you and I were in a position, we were athletically gifted, we could make a lot of money, we'd probably do what they did. But honestly, how is that benefiting us? Let me see. So, also, um, let me see, Jekyll Island, Georgia. I'm headed there on Sunday, or tomorrow actually. It's going to be an interesting experience. I've read about it a long time ago. Matter of fact, about 10 years ago, I got Creature from Jekyll Island, the book by G. Edward Griffin, and it was a fabulous book. Also, for the commenters, anytime it's an anonymous one, you kind of have to wonder, who is this, a bot? Who is this, an agent? If a comment is, if it's a critical one, I generally, if they're going to criticize and they want to argue and it's an anonymous account, don't even waste your time. If they are a real person, they legitimately have some criticism, I'll address that. But these anonymous accounts, There are millions of bots, and they will sit here and waste the rest of our lives if we go back and forth with them. So I don't recognize this one commenter. I don't know if it's legitimate or not. Um, but yeah, just not wasting my time on a lot of this stuff. A real person, I'd be happy to have a discussion. If I suspect somebody is a bot. Um, okay. Okay. Hey, Tony, I don't know who you are. You know, it's kind of hard on these things. You just don't know. So, but anyways, let me continue on with the video. I'm going to Jekyll Island. That was where in 1910, that was where 6 men representing a quarter of the world's wealth met at Jekyll Island, Georgia, and they came up with the Federal Reserve, the income tax, and the 17th Amendment, which was direct election of senators. That was all in 1910, and then they got Wilson elected in 1912. Wilson got 40% of the Democratic vote. The Republicans, Taft was in the White House, and Taft was appointed by Teddy Roosevelt. Well, Teddy Roosevelt was funded by these bankers to run as the Bull Moose Party. Teddy Roosevelt and Taft split 60% of the Republican vote in 1940. And this is all detailed brilliantly by Myron Fagan in The Illuminati and the Council on Foreign Relations. It's an amazing book. It's hard to find. He has 83 other booklets too. Good luck getting your hands on them. They are extremely difficult to find. But that guy was spot on so much. So anyways, Jekyll Island, Georgia, it's going to be a pretty fantastic place. They got a museum. They don't really ever address the Jewish role in all this, but it was a heavy Jewish role. Paul Warburg was definitely there. Amen, Tony. Yeah, red fog over Hollywood. Absolutely, that is spot on. Sorry, I have to be so suspicious, but the fact of the matter is, you can never tell who's who now, and I've almost reached a point to where, I just almost just automatically disqualify anybody. But also, I wanted to talk about fertility rates. They're extremely low. I was watching this video by some guy on YouTube. He's very crude, but he has a very traumatic life. His dad tried to kill him. He's actually in China. His mom was divorced. I think she's working on her 7th divorce. And his, I guess his older sister been divorced 4 times. He's telling, according to his videos, some of those marriages in China, he's saying some provinces have like a 70% divorce rate. That is just incredible. I mean, I didn't know marriage was in just as bad shape in China as it is in America. Now, China does have an edge on us in the fact that they ban drugs completely. Here, we are just flooded with fentanyl, pot, all kinds of other drugs, where China, they were destroyed because the Jews introduced opium into them, but as soon as they had control of the country, they banned drugs, which is what's going to happen. As soon as they have total control over America, they'll do the death penalty for drugs again right here too. But the fertility rates are very low. It's very hard to actually find people, get married, and have a lot of children. Now, I come from a family of 18, and it was amazing being raised in a large family. I can't even, rather than tell people, oh, you're not trying to have kids, that's so bad, I would rather say, you don't know what you're missing out on. I mean, it was absolute delight. Even though I was raised in the most diverse city in America, and that had its own problems. And absolutely, Tony, the cell phone, it has got to be used with moderation. That's why I kind of thought twice about doing these videos too, because I would rather people read my writing on my website or in a book than come on here and watch videos. But the time is so short, I figured let me go ahead and try and do this. So the attraction dynamic for men and women has been warped big time, because millions of men and hundreds of millions of men and women are, if we're honest with ourselves, our attraction dynamics have been conditioned by the media. So we men, we're trained to look at women who are promiscuous. If you think a lot of the movies that, I mean, you almost can't help to have, if you haven't seen some of these or been exposed to them. I mean, I was pretty sheltered. I grew up without a television and movies, and if I know about all these in America, it's hard to think other people don't. So the movie Pretty Woman with Julia Roberts, so that kind of like normalizes this idea that a man could just meet a woman who's very promiscuous and it just ends up happily ever after. Well, that's far from the truth. Men and women who have been promiscuous are going to have a hard time staying committed in a marriage, especially in a society which is designed specifically to undermine the man's ability on one income to economically provide for and support a large family with a stay-at-home wife. That's been the design, and it's working out wonderfully, because if you look, our fertility rate is like at 1.7 kids each. And the other thing is, they are dramatically trying to promote the destruction of America by pushing miscegenation. So miscegenation is marrying outside of your race. And of course, you know, the people say, "Oh, this is racist and all this stuff." Well, I mean, so I understand there are millions of Americans that have honestly fallen in love with people who are not your race. And I totally sympathize, because yours truly, that was exactly me. I remember when I was 20, 21, there was like, I was attracted to women, Latinas, mulattoes, blacks, Asians, Filipinos. Had I been married at 21 to who I wanted to be married to at 21, I would be in a marriage that is miscegenation. I 100% would be. But I didn't know. I was raised with the media. I didn't know all these statistics. I didn't know culture. I didn't know the attempts to destroy cultures by mixing them. The Jews have been doing this for centuries. Long before any of us who are watching this video have been born, the Jews, this is why all of the empires, Greece, Rome, Babylon, France, all these empires, Assyria, they all fell, and they were all very powerful. They all fell. And one empire is still going strong, and that's the Jews, because what the Jews have successfully done is they get every other empire to mix and mix and mix, and they themselves, they don't mix. Or if they do mix, they have controlled mixing. So right now, do you see blacks, Latinos, and Asians in Israel? I don't. Oh, they could talk about how much they support blacks and Asians and Latinos all they want. They do it all the time. Jews here in America say they just love blacks and Asians and Latinos. Diversity is wonderful. Diversity for America. Well, how about diversity for Israel? No, no. They know that if you want to destroy a civilization, you need to mix it. And they've been busy. Their whole goal, they're not even hiding this. Richard Coudenhove Kalergi was a Japanese Jewish man, and he wrote a book called Practical Idealism, and he spells it out very clearly that they want to mix all of the races, and only one race will be ruling all the rest. They call it the elites, but it will be the Jews. Their Talmud has been saying this for 2,000 years at least. And you're right, Tony. The STDs, it's a huge problem. Promiscuity. I saw like 1 out of 3 Americans has a STD or something. And promiscuity also leads to psychotropic drugs. I think like 1/3 of women is on psychotropic drugs. It is a huge problem. Very bad. Very, very bad. And you know, all these mental issues, I don't know people who contain sex in a heterosexual marriage who are virtuous, who are wise, who don't use drugs. And I don't know any of them that have any of these mental issues. So it's really a simple deal. If you want to avoid a lot of these problems, yeah, Lincoln said it is so true, it's so profound. He says, when I do good, I feel good. When I do bad, I feel bad. And that has been my experience for my entire 46 years and will be my experience until the day I die. We have to be able to distinguish. Yeah, well, American whites, yeah, I mean, you have Italian, Irish, all that, they all mix. But the thing is, America wasn't really in bad shape when they had whites of all races coming here to America. It was when we started in 1965 with the Hart-Celler Act. That was the very first time in American history that we had, you were allowed to move here if you are not white. So from 1776 to 1965, you could not move to America unless you were white. And that there was a reason behind that. That's not because this whole egalitarianism, which by the way, that whole concept was invented by Franz Boas, a Jew, and that has only really been pushed in human history for the past century. Now we have 6,000 years at least of recorded human history, and we don't have a single instance of the races living together harmoniously. It just never happens. Jealousy, envy, strife, pride, it never works. It never has, and it likely never will. And I'm like, at some point, we're going to have to say, hey, if it hasn't worked for 6,000 years, why do we think it's going to work here? I know many people in the Black community who will tell you what I believe is true, that the Black community was doing way better off before desegregation. They had successful schools, successful businesses, successful neighborhoods, but with desegregation, it wrecked the Black community. Their cohesion, it destabilized it massively. The crime problems that we have today, the out of wedlock births, that did not exist in the Black community before desegregation. Which not only, anytime you get one race that's destabilized, it will always affect other races that they're around, and it has affected all the other races. Um, so uh, if you go back to just in 1960, America was 90% white. That was not accidental that it went down to 58% white, or yeah, 58% white today. That people think, oh, that just organically happened, just the way things are. We just need to learn to accept this as Christians. And Christianity has done a terrible job at addressing this. There are, I want to say, less than 5% of the Christian churches actually understand the racial issues that, I mean, I think Christianity is probably the best religion of all those available. The morality is sublime. But the fact of the matter is, every single white country has collapsed under Christianity. We can't ignore that. At some point, Christianity needs to be held accountable for this. I mean, everywhere they go, there has been, so yeah, it has great morals. I mean, in South America, they stopped the Indians from human sacrifice and all that. That's great, fantastic. I mean, even the Indians had some pretty barbaric practices they were doing in North America as well. So yeah, and against Islam and all that, I get it. Christianity has some wonderful ideals that I will not argue against, but the race aspect, you know, just look at all the chaos that's happening right now, this diversity. We can't even agree on anything. You get up and say something and you get arguments all across the board. We can't, objective truth is right out the window. Uh, the fact of the matter is, look in America right now. So we have millions of good, honest, wise, and virtuous Black, Latino, and Asian men. There's no doubt. I know many of them. But I'll tell you right now, America is based on kind of like the Bible and Greek and Roman history. That was the foundation of America. Your average 90% plus of Black, Latino, and Asian men, they do not care about Greek and Roman history. They don't want to know about it. They're not going to teach their kids about it. So if we have a foundation that's based on Rome and Greece, and it was arguably, our Constitution was probably the best document in world history behind the Bible. And now we're going to totally throw that out because of ignorance, because we have people coming here who don't understand the culture. Well, how are we supposed to last? If you have a foundation that's not being built upon, the whole structure collapses. And right now we have this celebrity culture with all these celebrities who don't know much. I mean, you could catch a football, you're a good boxer. I mean, Rome had their gladiators. They weren't the leaders. At least Rome knew that. Rome, largely your gladiators weren't your leaders. Like, they didn't make their actors as the leaders of their country like we have with Trump right now. So we're going to have to somehow, and it's actually not hard to restore America to 90% white again. All you do, you close the border, you send the illegals back. ICE is not the way to do it. ICE and DHS, Department of Homeland Security, they all came about because of the Jewish hoax of 9/11 with the Patriot Act. All of that needs to be redone. We got to get rid of the Federal Reserve and the income tax, get rid of welfare for corporations, for banks, for individuals, restore sound money. That's the key thing to all of this. And we'll be 90% white again in 10 years. It won't be hard. You have to restore a meritocracy. No more of this diversity and promoting people just because of their skin coloring, quotas for people who are not white. No, no, no. No more of that. That is going to stop. If you're not in America and you can contribute, like when whites came to America in the early 1900s, Italians, Irish, they came here and they understood they were here to work. There was no welfare back then. They weren't given like freebies and all this. No, no. So these people who are coming here today and you need freebies and what I get it, the cost of living is much higher. But still, if you're here and you can't pay your own way, go back home. This country is not for you. Already, like I'm a white man and there's heavy discrimination against me just for telling the truth. That's totally appalling. Um, Propinquity leads to miscegenation. Propinquity is how close you are to others. So, it's amazing. Blacks, Latinos, and Asians, they're all allowed to congregate among each other and appreciate their cultures. But somehow, if whites want to have their neighborhoods and their businesses and their meetings and their organizations, this is called racism. So the majority race in America is not allowed to associate among their own. That is a bunch of nonsense. Um, so right now you have confusion that reigns in the white culture. Whites barely even know their own history. They don't know Greece and Rome. Your average white person today, they're going to know more about rappers and entertainers than they're going to know about Greece and Rome, which is what this nation was founded upon. Greece had 300,000 people, and they were reached levels of accomplishments and achievements, which today's America, never mind the technology, we are not going to reach it. And it was because they valued virtue and wisdom and courage above money and power and looks. And today we're so shallow because people look and they're like, oh, this guy has muscles. Oh, this guy has $1 billion. How did he get his money? This billionaire, how did they get their money? People looked up to Bill Gates for years. And now it's like, it's a very rare person that doesn't know Bill. Bill Gates is a very corrupt man. So sure, all of us have problems, but some of us, we have problems and we keep right on in those problems. And these elites with the whole Epstein Island, that's just the tip of the iceberg, what they've been up to. The owners of our Federal Reserve, they're guilty of more crimes than you empty out every single jail and prison in America today. And all those crimes combined, the owners of our Federal Reserve are guilty of more. And yet these are the people who we pay our income tax to. These are the people who they control our media. We go to them to tell us about who the criminals are when they're the biggest criminals. Hopefully you're right, Tony. Birthright citizenship. Oh yeah. Yeah, well, and you're right about that secure election. You're absolutely right. Um, Secure election. Let's talk about that a little bit. I'm glad you brought that up. Secure election. So first of all, you should not be voting if you're under 25, because that's my opinion. Because the prefrontal cortex, right behind your forehead, that's the last part of your brain to develop, and that is the part of the brain that determines the difference between right and wrong. It gives you fully the capacity to make the judgment. Now it's kind of warped. People who use drugs and people who look at pornography and get into sexual sins before the age of 25, your brain is much more affected than if you had gotten into those things after the age of 25. You can come back from that. There is salvation and redemption, but it's more difficult. So under 25 should not be voting, number one. Number two, women should not be voting. So God bless the righteous women. And Miranda, if you're watching this, she is one of the best women. There's a handful of women on Gab, and I do mean a handful, that are like, they understand God's design. They live virtuous lives. They do the best in the capacity that they're in. She's one of them. You can't praise women like that high enough, because your average woman today, they're either so badly deceived. 99, well, it starts with men, because men are the leaders. If we men are not what we're supposed to be, you can't really blame the women. They are definitely not. You're not going to find a society of good, honest, wise, virtuous women, and the men are corrupt. It just does not happen. Women will follow the lead of men, whether they are good or bad. And yeah, amen. Women are an honest woman is guided by her emotions. There was a woman on call. She was a black woman. My company, they were doing a call, and she came out and she said, "We women are emotional," and she's one of the top performers, because once a woman acknowledges that she's emotional, she is in a position to master those emotions and to become her best self. But the woman who is dominated by her emotions, stay away from them. Do not marry them. You do not want to be around them as a man. You don't. You just flat out don't. If they're guided by their emotions, what is true today will be a lie tomorrow, will be true the next day. There is absolutely no standards whatsoever. I've seen it. It is not a pretty picture. You know, when God put the men in charge, and this long before Christianity, this was the case, it was for a reason. It was because the stability and it takes care of a lot of these fluctuating ideals that women have. So the whole thing of E. Michael Jones wrote a great book called Libido Dominandi, and he detailed how Jews have used pornography and sex trafficking. They have used this for centuries to weaken men. By weakening the men, they make the men emotional. And when men are emotional, they are far less likely to be able to rule their marriages, their wives, and their countries and churches. And for the women who think that, oh, I don't obey no man, I'm a free, independent woman. Well, that is, if you not a single woman says that who understands the objective statistics, because since women got the right to vote, this country has collapsed. Every objective statistic shows the collapse of America because of women becoming, quote unquote, empowered. It has been a disaster for women. It has been a disaster for children. America is on the verge of destruction because we can't survive like this. A woman who will not be selfless, most women today are selfish, men too, selfish. Starts with the men. The men aren't doing their job. Are men trying to get married and have as many children as they can? No. 99% of men are not. They are trying to limit the number of children that they have. Yep, Mom Donnie, practically every single Democrat. I want to say 70% of single women vote Democrat. That was one accurate, single women, that is, vote Democrat. It's true. Women of the two genders, if you look at the what happened in the Garden of Eden, Satan didn't spend 30 seconds on Adam. He went right after Eve. He knew once you have the woman, I mean, we men, if you like a woman, you want to do everything you can to please her. So you want to go along with what she wants. You want to agree with her. You want to tell her nice things. You don't want to ever criticize her. This is what you want to do as a man. But that's the thing is, the men have got to be men, and what that means is you got to stand on what you know is true. And if millions of women disagree with you and millions of women disagree with me, then you need to firmly, kindly, but persevere and keep right on stating what you know is true, and do not compromise your standards to get into a marriage with a woman who does not have your standards. Don't do it. You'll regret it. Millions of men will tell you. And the other thing is, most men, they get into a marriage, they don't even have standards to begin with. So, have standards. Have the standards of history in the Bible before you get into a marriage. And if you're in New York, Tony, wow, that's, wow, this video's gone 43 minutes already. And I could go easily for 4 or 5 more hours. I'm not even close to being exhausting what we're talking about. But yeah, if YouTube algorithms favored the truth, videos, and I'm not the only one saying these things, but videos like these would be at the very top of YouTube, because all the other stuff, it's fake. I mean, no matter what it is, if you're dealing with an influencer, no matter how interesting the topic, whether they're talking about football, whether they're talking about, it doesn't matter. I mean, there's so many things to talk about. YouTube is like endless interests. I've come across so many videos I didn't think I'd be interested in. I was interested by the end of it. And I'm trying to limit my time on there. But really right now, if there's anything that's more important than the JQ, the Jew question, please someone tell me what it is, because I don't see anything that affects us. And so many people are in denial about this. They can't comprehend that a tiny group of people rules the entire earth from the shadows. But that's the truth. It is the undeniable truth. And I just got into a debate. I was on Unz for about a week before Ron Unz, who said he's a proponent of free speech, but he started deleting my comments and banning them. So I left after a week. But they had some Chinese people on there commenting, and the Chinese are overwhelmingly not really understanding that their country is still controlled by Jews. It always has been under communism. It was Jews that subverted their countries, and they're doing it to every single country. It's kind of sad. Some of them were like aggressively saying nice things about China, and they were like America's bad, and they're parroting this stuff about MAGA and racist white people and all this stuff. I'm like, I'm sure just like we're being told the Chinese are devils, I'm sure the Jewish media over there is telling them that we're a bunch of devils too, and vice versa. This divide and conquer strategy. But anyways, going back to the elections, women should not vote. Repeal the 19th Amendment, which ironically or unironically, came along right after the 16th and 17th Amendment in Federal Reserve in 1913. 1920 was the 19th Amendment. Women got the right to vote. If you read a book in 1913 by called Philip Drew Administrator, written by Edward Mandell House, who was Wilson's Rothschild handler in the White House, he wrote the book anonymously. You could find it. Put in Philip Drew, and Drew is DRU, administrator, PDF. Put that in. You'll pull it up. You could read it for free. And he details how a tiny group of men can run the whole earth with propaganda. Absolutely 100%. So and using that book details how women going to get a job and being empowered and don't listen to your husband. And this is the blueprint. Millions of women, they're following this. I don't want to listen to no man. It's funny, they don't want to listen to their husbands, but they go to work and boy, they bow down real quick before their bosses. And even if a woman owns her own business, she's bowing down before the bankers. Whoever she has to go to get money, she'll do whatever. It's proverbial. What women will do for money. That's why we know what the oldest profession is. I mean, it needs to be cracked down on, and definitely pornography should still be illegal. But women are way too physically and emotionally vulnerable to put into positions of power. They are too easy to compromise. These female politicians, they're overwhelmingly Democrat, and even if they're Republican, you watch them when they face criticism. They are terrible at being able to logically refute criticism. If they're in a position of power, even if they're a Republican, what the women will do is they're going to emotionally respond to criticism. And that how are you going to convince someone when you're emotionally responding to things? I mean, it's great when a woman's trying to raise kids. Like I had a great group of women, like my mom and other women in my church who raised me, teachers. They did a fabulous job. A woman's emotions are fantastic when it comes to guiding young, emotional children. Absolutely, I won't argue that at all. But when it comes to guiding and having wisdom and having insight into the past and into the future, this is where women overwhelmingly fail. Good luck finding a woman with a very good grasp of history. They are extremely rare. There are a few that exist. I've met a few of them. One was, two of them actually. Two are black women from very stable families. One of them actually wrote a book about America's founders, talking about her dad was a preacher, but she was very astute on all of this. Yep, amen. It's on Balder. You could actually a better recommendation. Archive, I think, has it. Philip Drew Administrator, and anything on Archive. Archive is full of some of the best books that you're going to find for free. You could read them, but that's under attack too. What the Jews are trying to do is buying up the copyrights of all these books and taking them out of circulation. And so once that happens, the very same people who are always talking about no censorship and no banning, they are actually buying up the copyrights of these books and then deleting them. That's what they're doing. So another thing is, we already talked about the Kalergi plan, but this whole miscegenation, actually, before I go on to miscegenation again, let me finish up with this voting. I think people should be drug tested. If you're on welfare, we shouldn't have welfare, but people on welfare should not be voting. No mail-in voting, same-day voting. You do all that, you'll fix the voting system. So there's basically like 3 to 5 things. So number 1, under 25 can't vote. Number 2, women cannot vote. Number 3, those on welfare cannot vote. 4, I was kind of tossing it around. I don't like a basic history test, because if you don't know the history of America, you can't discuss America's founders, or Greece and Rome. Why are you voting? You don't know anything. Like Michael Crichton said, a phenomenal author. His Jurassic Park series is very well written, and amazing. It's said that he wrote 10,000 words a day. That's phenomenal work output, just incredible. Um, I don't know about an IQ test to vote. Uh, I don't think I would take it that far. I think the men should be voting. And matter of fact, the vast majority of our nation's problems are fixed if just the men vote. Um, if you get just the men voting and you get open forums where all of us are able to discuss these issues, where we're not censored and we're not having to deal with women's emotions that are constantly telling us that, what we say is not nice, we're mean, we're incels, all the other insults stuff that they throw our way. Uh, Without emotionally indoctrinated women, we are in a much better position. But few women even understand that they're emotionally indoctrinated. It's a shame because so many of the young women who would make fabulous wives and mothers, because they're brainwashed with feminism, they are terrible wives and mothers. And a wise men, we stay away from them, and they almost always end up just like Stella in Dickens' amazing Great Expectations. Pip loved her, and he would have been a good husband, but nope, she ended up with some brute. I don't even know if it said his name, but this is what normally will happen with women. They get brainwashed into feminism, they get promiscuous, and then they feel worthless. And then when they feel worthless, they just money and power. That's really the only things that exist for them. And I mean that the local drug dealer has money and power. So, but yeah, the IQ test, I don't really see that. But the IQ is definitely related to race. There's no ignoring that. I'm not going to really go into that. Yeah, that what we have right now is we have 90% of women going after 10% of men. The men with the money right now, your entertainers, these guys, they can basically sleep with any woman they want. And the women are basically holding out, even though by the age of 30, the women, like 90% of a woman's eggs are done. Women keep waiting and waiting and waiting, and they're not waiting celibately. Very rarely are doing that. They're most of the time being very promiscuous, and they say they can't find the right man, but they're sleeping around, and they are trying to find. It's the saddest dynamic because really the thing is your feelings for both men and women, your feelings for the other person, they are strengthened by sex. So if you actually will wait for marriage, then that initial time you would now have this powerful bond between you. But I want to say like 99% of people today who get married are not virgins. And that like in 1900, it had to be 90% of us were virgins in marriage. And we've gone to where now not being a virgin is not celebrated. Being a virgin is spit upon and it's looked down upon. It's crazy. You're actually looked down upon, like, oh, are you gay or what's wrong with you? Or you're an incel. If you're like living a celibate lifestyle, they say something's wrong with you. Meanwhile, the people who are running around sleeping with anybody and everybody, these people are like worship, like these are the people we need to be like. No, actually, no. There's a word for this. It's called libertines and rakes. And that's what these are. And primarily men. Men are the hunters, women are the hunted. So when you got women who are very promiscuous, that means you got men who are very promiscuous. And so, yeah, 90% of your women are trying to sleep with 10. They think that they have this idea that they alone are like these, they're going to appeal to this guy, that they're going to be the one to save this man and all this. It almost never works out. But yeah, it's women, and the culture has trained men that we are zeros if we don't have money in a Jewish money system. And it has trained women that if a man doesn't have money, and they'll come up with all kinds of reasons. They are so incredibly good at this. I heard one woman the other day, I want a man who's in motion. Does he have goals? Is he ambitious? Well, you could be a man and have goals and be ambitious, and you could be poor. Was Jesus, was he didn't have goals and didn't have ambition because he died with like nothing. So in these women's books, that would make him a nothing. Um, and I mean, from Diogenes to there was a number of men in world history that accomplished amazing things. Matter of fact, I want to say like 19 of the American founders died bankrupt. I mean, if their wives had the mentality of today's women, their wives would have left them. Because women overwhelmingly today, that's what they do. They are If you have money problems, it's very rare you're going to find a woman that will stay by your side. But I'll tell a man, all the men who are looking to get married, you had better make sure that you have something other with this woman than just money. Because if it's just money and sex, your relationship may be successful, but it's highly unlikely. And there's a good likelihood you're going to be adding to the divorce statistics because women are also hypergamous. They look to marry up. If they don't have standards when they're in a marriage, they will they have this problem. They will try to marry other men. Not 70% of divorces are initiated by women. If she's college educated, that rate goes all the way up to 90%, I want to say. So yeah, it's a huge problem. No fault divorce was another problem that needs to be reversed. If we're not talking about infidelity, if we're not talking about like if even if like a man's hitting his wife or if he's like abusing drugs or alcohol, that's fine. You could separate, but you can't remarry unless he actually cheats. Same goes for women. Like unless there's an actual adulterous incident, then you're married to that person for the rest of your life. Maybe it'll make people think a lot harder before they just go jumping into marriage. Because it's devastating on the kids, what the kids now have to deal with. Because, I mean, I'm grown when my parents separated, but it is devastating enough. It is a huge headache when you have a woman out of her place. And the problem we have today commonly is you got women who will not obey their husbands. They come up with all these reasons about, oh, I don't need to obey my husband because of this and this and this. Unless he's telling you to sin, you need to obey your husband. And then you got men who, I get it. It's a tough financial system for men to be able to provide for women. I understand that. But men who, they got excuses too. And then you got so many men that are under they are under a woman's authority, whether it's in the church or it's in the business world, whatever. And, if you're a wife, how do you respect a man who's under a woman's authority? It's just like, go back through history, even before Christianity. Like the totality, I want to say it's like 98 or 99% of kings and rulers in the Bible and in history, they were men. Why? I mean, we think about history's great conquerors. We're thinking about Alexander, Caesar, Napoleon, Patton, women. I mean, the Amazons, Joan of Arc. I mean, who are we really talking about here? But your average woman doesn't know anything about history, and their emotions are on steroids. So their emotions on steroids, it doesn't matter how much history happened. It doesn't matter to them. To them, their emotions are right, and you're wrong all the time. You could bring a million facts to the conversation. It does not matter. She's still going to be right. Yeah, it's very rare, Tony. Finding sentient people with good discernment, that is rare to do. So I think we've pretty much exhausted voting, but onto miscegenation. So unless you're blind, you've noticed all these commercials pushing the interracial relationships. It's constantly being done. And like I said, I would have been in one myself. But once you start looking at the data and you start to understand that whites have gone from, I don't know, 1900, we're around 40%, if the numbers I'm looking at are correct, down to about 10%. I'm pretty sure everybody of every race would be opposed to the extermination of their race, and I'm opposed to the extermination of my race too. So, these miscegenation, they were pushed by Jews. They wanted to mix the races, and the plan is very obvious what they're trying to do. They've been doing this forever. So yeah, I don't see good reasons right now to marry outside of your race. Your race, your culture. What's been done is done, and it's kind of, for me, like people who got into these things and didn't know. It's kind of heartbreaking because you didn't have the information. You did the best you could. Yeah, you love this person. Yeah, you want to take care of them, and there's some happy relationships right now. But you got to look at the good of the whole entire society. And of course, they're going to say, oh, you're like Hitler and you want to like all this. But look, Hitler just wanted Germany to be for Germans. And look what happened to Germany. It turned into a train wreck. Right now, you got all kinds of corruption and German. I mean, I think prostitution is legal in Germany. The German women have been whored out. 2 million women were raped after World War II. So, and then we're constantly told about the Holocaust. This is probably going to get my video banned because all I'm going to say is I think that was either sensationalized, and there's a book called The Greatest Hoax of the 20th Century by Arthur Butts, which is banned everywhere. Why are you banning books? Let people lay out the evidence. Even if it did happen, 100 million compared to 6 million, 100 million is a lot more. Why are we not hearing any movies about communism? You can't name 3 movies on communism. Why is that? So, but yeah, I think we're going to have to really critically, how do we deal with a nation which has, I don't know, we got 10, 20, 30 million children from mixed unions? They don't fit in with either culture, really. Um, I think you treat everybody, everybody's free to stay in America, right? At this point, if you're legal, but if you're not legal, then you need to go back home. Um, so the other thing is, how do you take this country and restore it to what it once was? So that's a very difficult topic because few people even understood the history of just 40, 50 years ago. It's crazy. In 1960, we were 90% white. 90% white. And I think the remaining 10% was largely black. That was decent. It was okay. Now it's like 58% white. What's going to happen when whites are a minority? I shudder to think about it. I was raised in a minority, in a city where whites were a minority. It was not a pretty picture. There was gangs of other races. There was no gangs of whites. And whites are told that they're guilty of everything. They were mistreated by people who don't even, he can't even really intelligently discuss history at all. They don't know even their own history. It's very rare that the history of Africa or can be discussed by American blacks. The history of whatever Asian they came from can be discussed by American Asians. Asians, though, are actually, they're pretty insightful. Asian IQ is generally higher. And Latinos, if you ask them about the history of South America, honest history of Cortez, not Cortez stole all the land and raped the women and killed the Indian, not that history. I'm talking about the real, the men that he marched with, the Incas, the Aztecs, the timeline, what was going on in the world history. Like 90% of the men who are not white in America right now, when it comes to world history, especially history outside their own race, they are not knowing anything about that. And since the West was like built by whites, and if you don't know Western history, I mean, you're kind of like, you're like a leaf that's not attached to a tree. You don't know anything. Really, you don't. How do you even honestly think about anything? It's just basically whatever new information is given to you, that's what you believe for that day. And that's the vast majority of Americans. That's the problem. Whatever you have seen in the media for the past 40, 50, 60 years, if the person's 40, 50, or 60, that is what they believe. The ability to insightfully look at things and step back and look at it critically, that is lacking a lot. So, wow, I just went over the hour mark. I think I'm going to go ahead and end this here. But thank you very much for tuning in. I'll try to do these somewhat more regularly. I am not confident. I know these algorithms do not favor me. If I was, if you're on YouTube and you're a homosexual or if you're not white or if you're a woman, the algorithms are going to favor you above someone who is a white, straight, heterosexual, Christian, constitutionalist male. That is just, it is what it is. If you don't believe those algorithms are in place, you're deceived. Because that's how you do it. All you do is you have to emphasize the opinions of the minorities and minimize the opinions of the majority. And pretty soon, the minorities are going to be the majority, and the majority will be the minority. And that's where we're headed right now. So thank you very much for tuning in. I look forward to talking again soon. Thank you for your comments. Please share as widely as possible, because right now what we really have is each other. Thanks a lot, Tony. I appreciate your comments. Thanks for the people who watched this so far. And let me know. Do you want me to do shorter videos, longer videos? Because doing this more regularly is I'm not confident. YouTube's totally censored, and the fact that they could take my video and totally ban it within 5 minutes, and I could have 2,000 videos that was gone to human history forever, I don't like that. Whereas if I wrote a book, they can't do that. So that's why I feel it's a more productive output use of my time. But anyways, peace. Y'all take care. You learn how to use this.